Hi, my name's Hayley Worley and this is Uncommon.
Uncommon is a production by Neural, an agency that helps both brands and talent tell their story. To learn more, just visit neural.com. That's NEURALLE.com. My guest this week, Hayley Worley from the Sheet Society. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, just out of lockdown for the what feels like 100th time, but we get through.
5.0. What was your favourite colour this lockdown?
Colour? What do you mean?
Like you have a real passion for colour, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was something about in a previous interview that you wish you could talk more about colours.
Yeah, I am a huge advocate for colour, being the vehicle to express how you feel.
Do you have a favourite colour?
It changes so much because I really like to follow the seasons, and that's kind of what we're all about at the Sheet Society. So I love that, a slightly different shade or a different hue can make something feel really fresh.
Do you have go-to, I wear navy everything. Like navy and what would you call it? Like olive or what's the term? They call it green over tan is like a real thing. Like you wear sort of that nice woody type color, and then often you've got like an olive that goes with it. But those are like my three go-to colors. Do you have anything like that?
Do you know what? I absolutely don't. And if you looked into my wardrobe, you would see a lot of neutrals and you'd also see a lot of fluoros. So
yeah, right.
I loved it. I can wear something different and it really expresses the way I'm feeling that week or that day.
Nice. Okay, so childhood. What's your earliest memory from your childhood?
I think I remember falling down the stairs at perhaps maybe my 3rd birthday and knocking my 2 front teeth out.
Damn.
Yeah, I remember I was holding a balloon at the time and I was just so full of beans. I was running down the stairs and just fell over and knocked my 2 front teeth out and was crying and bleeding. And I remember my mum just holding them in and they just somehow attached themselves back again.
So when you fell over, did you chip them or they just came out?
No, they literally both just came out and I think they were holding on by a little ruche each. Yeah. And my mum, the look in her eyes was just like, not today, and just shove it back in.
That's like a thing, right? I've heard a few people that have obviously been parents and discuss about their kids at a certain age doing something like this and saying that they just sort of just shoved it back in and it was fine, which I find really unusual, but also fascinating and so adaptive as well. So you never had issues with your 2 front teeth after that?
Nah, not at all. If anything, I was like the gal at the party that could open beers with their teeth, so they're good to go.
Wow, that's so funny. What did your parents do growing up?
My dad was a fireman, and so it meant that he did shift work. So I think he did 4 days on and then 4 days off. And so Dad was really around a lot of the time. My mum was a receptionist at a doctor's office. And then I remember I must have been maybe 10 or 11, and Dad came home one day and they sat us down and Dad said, look, I've quit my job and I'm going to start a business.
What was the business?
And I remember, well, he was a fire consultant, so he used to go into buildings and teach them how to get out if there was a fire. And then my mum started working for him. My mum would draw up all the emergency evacuation plans. So they were a bit of a dynamic duo for a long time there. But wow. I remember I was maybe 10 or 11 and Dad came home and he said, look, things are going to be a bit tough for a while because I haven't got a job anymore, but eventually we'll be okay. And we're kind of writing our own story here. And I remember I've got 2 other brothers, an older and a younger brother, and we were kind of like, hang on, does this mean we're going to struggle? Are we going to be poor? What's going on? Are we never going to go on family holidays? And obviously we were fine, and it just from an early age cemented into me that you can write your own path.
How old were you when they started this business?
I think I was around 11. Yeah, 11 or 12. And we all helped as kids. You know, Mum would print out the fire evacuation plans and we'd put them in little ring binders, and then Dad would go off and do his training. And so, yeah, we really all felt a part of it.
Yeah, because you're quite interesting in that, you know, you run your business with your husband, just like I run mine with my wife as well. And all I know from my childhood is that my dad he came from a family of business owners. I wouldn't call them entrepreneurs because it was harder to be an entrepreneur per se back then. I think Dad's a 4th generation printer, and him and his two of his brothers, one brother sort of got involved in the family business, but they all started their own business. And the wives that married into the family all got involved in the business. So all I know from childhood is that when you get married, you start a business with your husband or wife, and then, like, you know, people within the family would get involved and support in some other way. You know, I distinctly remember as a kid sitting on a shelf with my legs dangling in Dad's factory, and just the smell of fresh and warm paper. Like, imagine like standing next to a printer where you smell like freshly printed paper, but times that by 1,000 because it's in this big factory with no, like, you know, airflow or anything like that. So I found that really interesting. And people ask me a lot, how do you and your wife work together? But for me, it's just sort of like obvious. Well, like, I wouldn't have it any other way. So how do you and your husband deal when people ask those sort of questions?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's funny that you said that your dad was the one to start the business and your mum helped, because it was the opposite for Andy and I. Right before we launched the Sheep Society, Andy and I were, I think, maybe like 28, and that was, you know, us ready to buy a house and settle down. And I remember saying to Andy, like, I don't want to do my job anymore. I want to start my own business. And he was like, no, like, we've got this savings plan, like, we'll have a mortgage in 2 years, like, don't jump off this path. And yeah, I kind of did take that jump. And I remember him saying to me, well, why don't you start your business and then do it on the side for a couple of years, and then hopefully, you know, you're earning enough money so you can quit the job. And I had launched a business that had been going on for maybe like 3 or 4 months. And then I said to him one morning, I was like, I'm going to quit my job today. And he's like, do not go in there and quit your job. The Sheep Society isn't making enough money yet. And I came home and I was like, I did it. It got to the point where
you could function.
I'd put all my money, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but when I said to Andy I wanted to start a business, it got to a stage where we put some cash in. We needed to keep going, and you know, we had that money there that we were going to buy a house with, and so reluctantly he kind of handed that over to me to buy some more bed sheets, and so we were all in on this venture, and I was still trying to hold down a day job, and it didn't make any sense because I'd put all of my money into it, but I wasn't putting all of my time into it, and it was kind of chicken or the egg, and so I quit my job after 3 or 4 months of starting the Sheep Society, and since then never looked back. But I do still bring it up with Andy every now and again because he really tried to convince me to stay. And I've got this thing where he mapped out our budget, and he's like, look, if you stay in your full-time role, we can save $800 extra a fortnight. And it just is so funny because, the business has just gone leaps and bounds beyond $800 a fortnight. Yeah. So I never let him forget that.
And that's the thing as well that you learn with running a business is that it just creates a lot of, like, if you're willing to take the risk, it can create so much more value if you are willing to go. I think Lauren and I are at the same stage that you and Andy were at 28. Maybe we're mid. It's sort of a bit of a mixed one because I'm 31. She's about to turn 30. We just got married. So there's discussion around kids. Lauren really wants a dog. We've saved up this money for a house. But there's also the fact that, like, there's a few things we just need to rip the Band-Aid off and dive into. And one of those things is getting our studio space sorted because we've got all these staff who are remote. And, COVID, if I'm going to be honest, COVID has also helped us delay the decision because you can just make the argument, oh, well, we're locked down again. We don't have to get an office. We could just all be remote. We'll just keep doing the podcast from here because we don't really, like, apart from going to meet clients, we don't need a space per se.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to the point now where it's like you have to do it, and there's going to be a chunk of change that we have to take from the mortgage money. And so I don't know what I want to ask, but I just want some reassurance that we're on not so much the right path, but by taking a bet, it's the right thing to do. And the mortgage isn't a be all and end all to life. And that, you know, like, I'm really like clucky for kids, you know, but we know that we don't want to do that until this thing is sorted. So what advice can you offer me?
Oh, look, I am really big on like hashtag no regrets. And I think if the regret that you have is bigger than the loss that you might incur if it really went tits up, then that's your answer right there.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one. When did you guys, how long into Sheet Society did you guys have kids, or did you have kids just before?
We're probably 2 years into the business. And when I got pregnant, it was literally just me. I think it was probably maybe a year and a half of running the business, and I was doing everything. I'd come in and ship out orders in the morning and then do marketing in the afternoon. And yeah, when I fell pregnant, it really changed my business. And I think a lot of people think that you can't have both, but I'm such a big advocate for maternity leave really being the reason why things really kicked off for us. And you know, when I was about to leave on mat leave, we were looking around for a replacement, and then we kind of went back to my husband, and he was like, do you know what? No one's going to care about this business more than I do. And yeah, I can't do everything that you do, but I can do all these other things that you're not doing well. And it really forced us to level up. And, you know, maybe if I didn't fall pregnant, I would have been slower in making those tough decisions.
Yeah.
I could have just, you know, had a hustle just with myself, or kept it quite small fry. But the lead up before mat leave, I was really working hard to put all these ducks in a row. You know, I designed heaps more collections and really got a lot of our brand strategy and got a lot of that stuff down on paper when it was just in my head, because I knew that I had to leave the business. And so when Andy came on, all of these things that I'd put into work were coming into fruition. And he was like, mate, I'm nailing this. As soon as I joined, the business really kicked up a notch. And I was like, hang on, mate, this is all work I've done before I left. Yeah. I know. But it really did force us to level up. And I remember saying to Andy before I left on mat leave, I was like, I just need help. I need to hire someone. I just can't be packing orders all morning. Like it's hard to switch focus. Like if I'm doing customer service, but then I'm also kind of trying to plan the next 12 months of marketing activities, it's a hard thing to do every day.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, well, we're not making enough money. You can't hire someone. And that's that kind of chicken or the egg thing. Like some decisions you do have to earn them before you get them, but then other things won't happen unless you take that risk. And so, yeah, when Andy started and I left, he was like, mate, we need to hire people. And I was like, well, what do you think
Really?
I've been telling you? Yeah. And so he hired a couple of people while I was on that leave. And then it just skyrocketed from there, really. So
I was going to say, how did you guys collectively make a decision on when you were ready to hire someone? Because you're right, so many things in a business that is bootstrapped like this, and like ours as well, where you're not, let's say, borrowing money, you're basically just doing it off taking a punt and budgeting well. How much leeway did you give yourself in hiring? Did you say, okay, we've just got to have enough cash that this person could be paid for 3 months, and then hope that after 3 months we start to break even on the roll? What was the sort of decision making there?
Well, we've never been in the red. So like Andy's really instilled that into me from day one. Like if your business isn't making money, it's not a business, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
And so he's been really good at being tough on me. You know, I used to want to launch new collections and colours because I liked them and I thought that they'd be great for the brand. And at the end of the day, if we can't sell them, then there's no point doing that. So it was never kind of as cutthroat as this person needs to pay for themselves in the next 3 months.
Okay. So it wasn't really an issue. It was just a realization that either you guys need to be paid less or the business need to earn less, and you need to invest back into it with hiring people, essentially.
Not earn less, make more.
Yeah. But you still need to take cash and put it into someone, right? So it has some sort of a short-term impact at least.
Well, yeah, but maybe instead of take cash, we just increase the forecast.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's jump back to early studies. We were just chatting about this offline. So I know you graduated from Eltham High. I think one of our staff went to Eltham High, actually.
Oh, no way.
Or lives around there. Is Eltham near Diamond Creek?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's it. He was saying that like Eltham High was like the big school in the area.
The big school. It was the hippie school. We didn't have a uniform. Like,
that's right.
Kids didn't wear shoes.
Yeah, people don't have a uniform. That's the thing he was talking about. So you did Cert 4, but you were telling me that you, after a year, you were done with it and you got straight into sort of, it seems like you're working at Marks around the same time, but then there's this talk about traveling. So, I've got here Marks, Best Corp, working at the ski resort in Canada, Ted Baker, Tiger Mist. Some of the things make sense as you get to the latter stage of Tiger Mist, but talk me through the school of life, so to speak, and traveling and what that did for you.
Yeah, well, I went straight from high school to uni. I call it uni, but it was actually TAFE. I wanted to get into fashion at Melbourne Uni, but it was really hard to get into. And so instead I took a TAFE course, Cert 4 in clothing production, and it was so fun. Like TAFE was the best. Like we came in every day and we had a day for sewing and then we had a day for pattern making, a day for CAD, and it was so practical and hands-on that I really loved it. And it got to the end of the first year and they said, look, second year is all about pretending that you have a fashion label and you go through all of the stages. And at the end of it, you present your fashion label. And I was like, okay, that sounds great, but it sounds like a waste of time if I'm not actually doing that. And so instead of pretending, I actually quit uni after the first year and I started a fashion label the next year.
Yeah, right.
And I think I did everything wrong in the book. So, yeah, it was called Lacey. And I remember I sold 4 different dresses and I sold them to, it was kind of like the glue store of the time back there in the early 2000s. And I manufactured them locally and I had a friend that worked at the store, so I got in with the buyer and I think they bought like 50 dresses and I lost so much money on it and I didn't really know what I was doing, but they sold out over like a week and the guy said, look, cool, we bought 50, we want to buy 200, and I was like, oh no, like I just can't keep that up. But I learned so much about all of the processes, and although I did probably lose a lot of cash, to me that was so much more valuable than that year in uni, and I'd probably done that over a space of a couple of months. So yeah, it was a really good initiative and I really learned a lot from that. But yeah, I wanted to travel. I've always had the travel bug. So when I was 19, I went over to America and I did a summer camp.
Yeah, right.
I taught rock climbing at a Jewish summer camp in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And yeah, that taught me so much about, just going into a new country, a new role and making friends and, being a teacher and having kids. And yeah, it was a really, really great experience, and came back after that to Australia and then worked at Best Corporation, where I started out as just an admin assistant. So we'd work with Target and they would send us purchase orders for, I think I worked on city dressing. So I made black pants for Target, and it is mind-blowing how many black pants are sold in Target every year.
Yeah, right.
And climbed my way up there. We did the Stella McCartney range for Target. Mm-hmm. And then a Zach Posen collection as well. So it was a really good insight into the fashion world. But then after a couple of years of working there, I met Andy on a dance floor on a Sunday night at Cushion Lounge.
No. So Cushion was like your haunt.
No, I actually don't know how we ended up there on a Sunday at like 2 a.m. But yeah, I met Andy on a dance floor, and it was absolutely love at first sight, and we had a bit of a dance floor pash, and then he got my number, and the next day he texted me and he said, we're going out tonight, I need to see you again. And I think I knew him for about we were dating for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then he's from England, and he said, I've got to go back to England. I've got this job that needs me. And I said, well, I'm not really ready to say goodbye. So I quit my job and packed up and followed him over to England after knowing him for just 6 weeks.
Where in the UK is he from?
He's from Liverpool.
Oh, really? There you go.
Yeah. Wow. So he took me to Liverpool, which was a shithole. Sorry for anyone who's from Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit rough. So we were there for a few months, and I couldn't get a job in my industry. They don't really have anything to do with the fashion world up there. So yeah, we both left and we did some traveling. Went to India. We did the base camp trek in Nepal. We went to for a month. We moved to Canada, so we worked for a ski hill. I was an event coordinator, and then we drove a car. We bought a car in Canada and drove it to Panama. So all through the US, Mexico. We built a house in Nicaragua for a family of 5, and it was just such a great time of my life, and we just learned so much about hustling and traveling, and even just like crossing an international border with a car. You would have to cross the border yourself by foot and get a stamp in your passport, and then you would have to leave again and then go through the process of importing your car like it was kind of a human. You had like a car passport too. So yeah, it was just wild. We didn't work for a whole year and we just traveled, and the school of life, definitely.
So that was a whole year, was it? Traveling, and that includes your time in Liverpool?
No, time in Liverpool and then living in Canada. I was out of Australia for about 4.5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right. Yeah. Because I was going to say, Lauren and I had, when you're talking about the traveling component, we had at least like 6 to 8 months just going through Europe, just on the train system. And I feel like some things like that really do, like you just got to scrounge, you just got to get your way around it. We actually found a way at that time to get through not paying for expensive we thought expensive backpackers. And that was the era of couch surfing, and Airbnb had just kicked off. So there was real opportunity there with Airbnb. I remember we stayed, and we're still friends with this guy, and now his Mexican wife in Copenhagen. They've had a kid. My sister stayed with him when she went to Scandinavia, and we paid like 20 Aussie dollars a night just for a room. And he's come over here, he's traveled, his sister's come over here. It's quite amazing what that experience can do, I find. Yeah, I'm such a big advocate for travel. So you mentioned before about this Jewish summer camp. That's very specific. Are you part of the Jewish community, or is that just something that just came out of nowhere?
No, it came out of nowhere. I'd signed up for Camp America, and I'd never met a Jewish person in my life. And so they called me and they said, hey, we're going to send you to a Jewish summer camp. And I was like, whoa, what? And then by the end of, I think it was like a 3-month camp, by the end I was singing all the songs. I had they gave me a t-shirt that was like honorary Jewish gal or something. It was so fun.
Yeah, right. That's so funny. Yeah, look, I'd agree. I think traveling really builds your principles. There's no doubt about that. I think as well, your time in the workforce combined with that would have started to build some sort of an idea around how you run your own business, because it sort of sounds like at that time at Tiger Mist you were just done. So I guess I'm curious, if you look at that entire period of your life and you boil it down to sort of the golden principles that you continually repeat to staff today at the Sheet Society, what are they?
Oh, the golden principles. That's quite a big call. Look, I think at the Sheet Society we're all just having a good time, and I think if it's not fun, we don't do it, and that's something that we really live by. Traveling really teaches you that you've got to enjoy it. Like sometimes traveling is shit, and you lose your passport, or you can't do your laundry and everything like that, and it's that resilience and that ability to pick yourself up and keep going and find the joys in the everyday. So yeah, that's something that we try and do at the Sheet Society.
You Yes, you. Are you intrigued by this episode? If so, go to our footer on the website, neurale.com, neurale.com. We're going to give you an insight. Each week it's going to be on business, marketing, or a topic that we covered in the episode. At all, we'd love your support and it would help us in developing the intellect around this series. But without going on too much longer, let's get back into this episode. Okay, so founded 2017, obviously, well, I say 2017, it was probably before you finished up at Tiger Mist. So what year did you start the business?
Yeah, 2017 Feb. So okay. I started working on the business probably like maybe June before that in 2016. Okay. But the first stage of the business, like the product developing and finding the factories and getting the product here, like that was my jam. So I totally knew how to do that. I've been doing that for nearly 10 years. Yeah. But it was probably in that Feb when we launched the business, that's when all the tough stuff kicked in. So, the marketing and operations and all of that stuff that I had no idea about.
And that product, was that initial product, the initial run, was that developed locally or were you looking at China back then?
Yeah, looking at China, because that's where I'd been producing for 10 years before that. So yeah, I knew how to find the right supplier and get the right product and the right price.
So I know, as I said, you're working at Tiger Mist, where sort of the cycle of fast fashion was, I think from a previous interview, you said it was starting to wear you down a bit, or at least the clothing space was starting to wear you down a bit. You'd always been interested in starting something yourself, and that you knew that in some way in this interview, you mentioned that you wanted to be around colors and fabrics, essentially what you were passionate about. Obviously, you landed on bed sheets, which I guess I'm curious as to why that was the case. Like, why bedding of all the things?
I just thought it needed desperately to be innovated. I remember we got married at around about the same time, 2014, and we wanted to get new bed sheets for our wedding. And so I walked into a department store, and they're all in those like sweaty big bricks that are like wrapped in plastic. Yeah. And I picked out what I thought was a neutral tone, and I got it home and it had this like fluoro orange piping around it with like all these awful stitching lines, and I'm like, I couldn't tell that it was like that in the photo, and I'd unwrapped it, so I was stuck with it, and I just felt so frustrated with that. I also love the feeling of changing your sheets, and I love the way that, it's such a big thing in your bedroom. It's like the most imposing thing in your most personal space. So it should make you feel happy. And, whenever I got new sheets, I was just like really happy with the way that elevated my bedroom. And I think with people staying home longer nowadays and living in smaller spaces, your bed really is like the focal point of your bedroom. And, why aren't we able to shop for bed sheets like you shop for clothes? The experience is just so different. Like, if you go to buy a dress for the weekend, you can actually go in, you can touch the fabric, you can try it on. Why can't you do that with sheets?
Yeah, and it sort of sounds like it was clearly an area that direct-to-consumer or e-commerce could touch. And I'd agree with that. Like, I'm a clean freak. I like clean sheets. It's something that Lauren and I have been needing to upgrade for a while now. I've still got this. We've got this really good mattress, but it's also like 8 years old, so it needs to be changed, I think. But we've been slowly updating that sort of stuff, and I think brands like yours and others that, like, I just got an ergonomic pillow because I had like a snoring problem. And that was brand new, that we had no idea because she's such a deep sleeper. But like little things like that just got, programmed. It was in the Instagram feed. I saw it and it's like it's cut my snoring in half, like the recorded snoring, which is so good. So little things like that fascinate me. I guess I was curious what the first 2 years was like, I guess, before you could hire a marketer like Kate. When you are at that position where you could hire those sorts of individuals, what was that first 2 years like?
Oh, it's really tough. And I think if you don't have resilience or the ability to just put a smile on every day, it would wear you down. I remember I had this saying at the time, like I'd go into my little co-working warehousing little room. I'd just try things like try email marketing, try getting customers through, I don't know, PR, or I'd just try something new almost every day, and it wouldn't work. Like a lot of it would just be, you know, I'd spend a whole week doing some sort of campaign or some sort of idea and get, you know, maybe 2 or 3 sales out of it. And I just had this saying every day that I would just close my laptop down and say, I'll just try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, like looking back, is just getting traction, and traction in the early days, although it didn't seem like much. Like, you know, I was sending out 4 orders a day, and then it got to 6, and then I did 8. And it doesn't seem like a high number, but if you look at that percentage growth, like it is ticking along, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of resilience in the early days, and I wish I enjoyed it a lot more. Like I actually love doing every part of my business. Like I love sending out orders. We write handwritten notes and send them out with every one of our parcels, and, you know, writing cheeky fun things and learning about digital marketing and all of that stuff. I just was so focused on it being a success that I probably didn't appreciate the day-to-day. And looking back, I hardly took any photos of the first few years because I was so worried it was going to fail. And then, you know, if it failed and I had all these photos, like how embarrassing.
Yeah, it definitely changes in those early days versus, like, it's a different type of position. It's just like you just scrounge and you do whatever you can, but when you get to where you are now, you become a manager. It's a totally different role. And there's something I particularly feed off those early days, but also I am enjoying that change slowly as well. There was something you mentioned before about the different orders and just finding a thing that would click, so to speak. Because you get to a point with a direct-to-consumer business or an e-commerce business where you know certain channels just work. And if you put $1 in, you get $5 back or $10 back or whatever the number may be. What was that specific moment? Was there a moment like that?
Yeah, I think there was, when I figured out what a marketing funnel was. And I figured out that I could, you know, send a video about our brand to a cold audience. I could then target them with a bit more information about our products, and then I could hit them with like a banner cart. When I figured that out, that was when it really clicked for us. And I started tracking cost per conversion from the early days. And yeah, and it's so hard to find, I guess, that true acquisition cost when the attribution models are all over the place for different channels. But at the end of the day, net, how much did I spend and how much did I make? And then figuring out with my margins too what an acceptable cost per conversion was. So I knew that, like, as raw as that is, that's just what I needed to keep an eye on. And, you know, that was my then gauge of if it was doing well or not.
Yeah. Okay, so the business model. We work with a lot of direct-to-consumer brands, and we've interviewed a lot of businesses like yours. I think it's getting increasingly hard, particularly due to COVID, for big box retailers to compete with a business model like yours, particularly now that you have a showroom available, or when you have a showroom available, it sort of gets to the point of, okay, unless you're really, really, really time poor, which there are rare circumstances that would exist like that for betting, that's the only way that they could have a clear advantage. All you have to do is, if you reach an individual and they see your product versus something that you would find at Adairs or 40 Winks or whatever, it's sort of a no-brainer, simply because the pricing is better, the product is better, all these things combined for a better product. So I guess I'm curious, what's sort of in your mind, the best thing that you have about your go-to-market right now, and the thing that could give you advantages in years to come, i.e. could it be more showrooms in different states or something like that?
Yeah, it's such a funny question, isn't it? What's the one thing? And
there is no one thing, though.
One thing, yeah. And I think what we've been really smart about is making lots of little things, you know, and that's like free shipping. It's a handwritten note. It's an invisible zipper. It's a stretchy elastic. It's a deep pillow fold. It's all of those little things. And in that, if we're offering you 10 things that are better than Adairs, then you might grab onto one of them or two of them, and that's what keeps you in there. The showroom is a really interesting point, and we've got a retail expansion plan for hopefully the back end of this year and early next year. Because the store that we've got in Abbotsford, it was kind of an afterthought. We needed a space for an office and a warehouse, and this happened to have a shop front. And so we just thought, hey, let's give it a go. And originally it was just going to be a showroom where we'd have one of everything on display and people could come and look, and then they would still be able to check out online. But then we thought, hang on, that's annoying. I hate when I go into somewhere and I have to ask to buy something. Why can't they just pick it up and take it to the counter? So then we changed the strategy to make it a store.
When was that out of interest?
We opened that March last year, so literally 2 days before the lockdown. And I remember I worked so hard on it all over the Christmas break. I remember we just did so much DIY to that place. It was just a bomb site before we took the lease over, and we got a good deal over it. But I remember being in the store on the day after New Year's Eve, and I was so hungover, and I was spray painting the ceiling in this big Breaking Bad paint mask situation. So it was a labour of love. And when we opened it, it was 2 days before the lockdown. So I put this big sign on the front window saying, Melbourne, we're open, take us to bed. And my PR company called me within 5 minutes, and they were like, you can't put that sign up, Hayley.
Oh no, what was their reasoning?
Well, because we were going into lockdown.
Oh, damn. It's a good one though. I like it.
So it was interesting because our business grew so much during lockdown, with everyone staying home and having all of that spending money that you would usually spend at bars or restaurants or on experiences. Everyone was doing up their home. So we really capitalised a lot on that. And that was right around the time that Kate started with us too. By the time we got to open the store, I think, 4 or 5 months later, there was a line around the door of people that had seen the brand on Instagram during lockdowns and wanted to come and touch and feel. And it sounds a bit wanky to say, but it's such an experience. It's not about the sale. And we've got customers that come in and spend an hour with our team. And, we had one guy that brought his bed head into the store because he wanted to see if we could find sheets that matched it. So it is an experience, and we spend a lot of time with our customers. And, the conversion rate for the store is around 50%. So people come there ready to buy. And I think it's a really interesting concept to take a store and put it off the high street and don't go for foot traffic, but more go for experience. So, I've learned a lot about the retail space, and we're really excited to explore that.
Yeah, I think we went to your store after lockdown, but also we went to Brosa. I feel like you guys and businesses like Brosa have done that really, really well. I guess like you said, it's interesting that you realize that, particularly for a product like bedding, it would be frustrating if you're there at the store and you can't grab the thing. You've got to wait for it to be shipped because it is a smaller product. Brosa, I would understand because I'd be there fuck, I really want this thing now. But obviously it's a bit hard when you're looking at a 6-7 seater couch. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, you can't put it in the back of your car.
No, you can't just whack it in the back of your car. And they've done things to deal with that. Their shipping service is amazing where they will unpack they'll assemble the thing for you. So yeah, all of these product things combine. I mean, you guys have done that really, really well. I think things like the bed builder, which is, you start to see the product, not just the physical product, but the digital product, the whole entire experience, customer experience becomes everything. I guess I asked Kate this in Between Two Marketers, what has she learnt from you? And I've got to ask you, what have you learnt from Kate about marketing and experience?
Oh, look, Kate has got such a brand mind. And when she joined us, she was hire I think number 4 or 5. And at that stage, I was still convinced that I had an idea and I was making it a reality. But when Kate walked in the door, she was convinced that we had a brand and that was something special. And I think
interesting.
Really taught me a lot about brand and the power of brand. And I've really loved learning that about Kate.
What's the difference between brand, an idea, and brand? How would you quantify that?
Well, I mean, I I couldn't. Like in the start, I kind of said to everyone, I'm going to make bed sheets. And they were like, that's so boring. Like, what do you, like, you make clothes. Why would you want to make bed sheets? And to me, because I'm a product person, brand is everything that goes into the product, and it's the experience and all of those little bits. Whereas Kate has had, formal marketing training and experience around brands. And so she could see that all those little bits that I spoke about were brand, and they do come under brand. And I guess maybe I didn't really have the confidence to say, yeah, I've got a brand. I was kind of still hustling to start a business and to still get my ideas out there.
Yeah, it's sort of that thing where you're the entrepreneur and you deal with that imposter syndrome. Whereas like you get a professional who's an authority, they come in and say, no, this is it. And they've got a framework and you're like, okay, cool. I can define it as this and now I'm absolutely sure of it. No, yeah. I totally get that. But we spoke before about COVID. I do wonder, like I think you said in a previous interview that headcount at the Sheet Society exploded, obviously, because I remember this distinctly. That first quarter after COVID kicked off on that Friday the 13th, where the Grand Prix was cancelled and everything was closing down. The NBA was cancelled. The AFL was in disarray. All these events done. And everyone's like, oh shit, this is really serious. Talk to me about like realistic numbers. How many people did you guys go from in March of that year to March now in terms of staff?
We probably went into lockdown with around 5, maybe 6, and then came out at around 30, 35.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a 6x in terms of staff.
Yeah. It's a bit triggering talking about it because in that time too we moved warehouses towards the back half of last year, so I think around September, October, we had to find a bigger space, and we were in, I think, maybe 150 square meters. And Andy and I just spitballed and we were like, let's go 1,000. Like, that's so bougie. And then we actually got a professional warehouse guy to come in and we did a 5-year forecast of inventory and SKU growth. And he was like, no, guys, you need 3,000 square meters. And we were like, oh, shit's getting real. And so, yeah, we were supposed to, we actually signed on to a lease for a new build out in Coburg, but that was delayed due to COVID. And so we found this amazing space in Brunswick that had just literally popped up on the market. And so we signed the lease here, and it was the old Kathmandu head office.
Really? Okay, wow. Yeah, but 3,000 square meters from 150 is like, holy shit, I can't imagine. Like I'm looking at 140 at them and I'm like, wow, we're going from 25, 30 square meters to 140 or whatever. And it feels big.
It's so funny. When we had the racking delivered for the warehouse, the guy came in a semi-trailer truck and he was in the front yard of our warehouse and he goes, oh, do you mind if I just do a U-turn? And we were like, where are you going to do a U-turn? And he went into the warehouse and just took this wide U-turn, and we're like, wow, okay, that's how big this space is. Because it's hard to look at a space like that and apportion it, but when you see a semi-trailer doing a U-turn into your warehouse, it's big.
And so people are probably wondering, why would you need a space that big? I guess for you, it's fulfillment. You do your own fulfillment and also for storage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We were selling out of things so quickly that we needed to hold at least, 6, 9, 12 months of inventory. And our product is big. Like if you buy a full set of sheets, you're looking at like 7 kilos. So yeah, it's a big product.
Do you think you'll ever do your own delivery? I guess it doesn't make sense, right? No one can really beat. I've always wondered if this is a thing because, you look at the business of like Star Trek and Ozpost and all that. I've always wondered, when are the direct-to-consumer brands going to unite and just found their own shipping company?
That's really interesting thought.
Yeah, like
it's nice to blame someone when shipping goes wrong.
Yeah, it is.
Like we love it. We love Ozpost, and they do a great job, but sometimes they don't, and it's either delivered on time in full or missing, never to be seen again.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for us to say to our customers, "Oh, it was just Ozpost again. Oh, we'll send you another one, or whatever we need to do to fix it."
Yeah, it doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it shits you and the customer off. I can totally get that.
Yeah.
Before we jump into some rapid fire questions to finish things off, I've got to ask that there was this repeat topic of fast fashion, obviously you went deep on that at Tiger Mist. There's the discussion around ethical and environmental issues. And honestly, I'm starting to wonder if it's even profitable. Like I was looking at, I feel like Zara's financial returns the other day, and I'm starting to believe that it's not even profitable to run a fast fashion business anymore in comparison to a direct-to-consumer business in this online era. Like it's going to get to that point because supply chains and product development are so different in e-commerce that it's going to get hard for a business that requires such a massive space. Like you look at H&M, they've got 1,000 square meters probably in prime real estate in the CBD. Like how can you afford that when you have a business like yours that has 3,000 in a CBD and puts all that money back into product development? I just don't know how they compete.
Yeah, interesting.
But I've got to ask, that's a question you get asked regularly, right? What's a question that you get that you wish you were asked more on these type of interviews? What's a topic you wish you could talk about more?
Oh, that's a really interesting point. In regards to the ethical and sustainability that you were just talking about, I think that we need to understand that a lot of the people that we're working with are human beings, and we're going through a bit of we launched a GOTS certified organic cotton range, and then we're being more sustainable. We're developing a recycled linen, and people talk to us all the time about ethical sourcing and your factories in China, and a lot of our customers are kind of like, oh, you produce out of China, like I don't want to have a bar of that, and I don't support that. But we really get to know our factories in China, and they're almost like our family. Like the guy that supported me with my first order, he's still our main supplier. So we've both grown our businesses at the same rate. And I feel like people don't talk about the humans behind the manufacturing. And China's changed so much in the last 4, 5, 7 years that it's very rare to find a factory over there that's unethical.
Yeah, it's like people think of like Foxconn as sort of the example, but you're absolutely right. Like most of the time they're like family run businesses, right?
Absolutely. Like I remember going out there, 9 or 10 years ago, and no one really had a mobile phone, and the toilets were squat toilets. But going out there before COVID, and they've all got iPhones, and factory owners are driving Mercedes to work. Like China isn't what it used to be, and I feel like no one's talking about that. A lot of people just write off, oh, you produce in China because it's cheap. We don't. We produce in China because they've been doing it for hundreds of years, and they've got really great quality. They've got access to all the best materials. We couldn't weave our fabric in Australia. We don't have the ability to weave long staple cotton here. I think a lot of people don't talk about the benefits around producing in China. And, if I did pull all of those orders from China and put them into Australia, what about those guys?
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that because in my opinion, the Chinese are the best. The Chinese economy, I think the problem is we've had the issue with COVID, and people look at the Chinese government versus the Chinese people, and they get confused between those two things. They're totally separate entities, in my opinion. But the Chinese economy is the best manufacturing economy in the world. It's just as simple as that. You can't beat them on most things. But what was I going to say? You mentioned before about the manufacturing component and how people get lost in the fact that it's China related. So we had a customer, they're called Butter, best activewear you'll ever wear. It's so good that my wife, who bought some of the products before they became a client, like she only wears the tights now. They're that comfy. She said it literally feels like you're wearing nothing. And they manufacture their stuff in China. And I remember the founder, when she first onboarded with us, was like, she was very like standoffish about the fact that they manufacture in China. So you're absolutely right. There's a thing that people are scared to say that they manufacture in China, which I find really, really odd. It's a good point.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's very interesting.
And I don't really believe in having to, get certifications and going through all this red tape about getting the paperwork around the factory. Like, I do believe that it's about creating that connection and communication. A lot of big businesses, they want to certify all their factories, but have you actually spoken to the employees? Are they actually happy? Like, there's all these things that you need to tick off the list, but realistically, like, have you been out there and have you had a look at it? So I am fascinated, and I can't wait to get back over there and reconnect with them again.
I think one day a D2C business like yours should do a content series on your manufacturing partners.
Oh, Jordan,
like a story.
We had that booked in. We literally, right before COVID kicked off in January, I was in Japan and we had flights to China, to Guangzhou, to film an on-the-road series.
No.
And we were in Japan and we thought, no, we've got to go home. We can't enter China at the moment. And one of our factories said, look, you're going to have to pull your trip. Things are really kicking off over here.
Wow, that's really sad. Yeah, I remember they're not a direct client, but they've done some work with our influencers. Get Pair, Ethan and the team at July invested in that business, I believe. Brilliant socks, super comfy, but one of the co-founders is like a third generation textile manufacturer. So like the photos I've seen of their environment for manufacturing, it's super fascinating. I'd love to see someone do a series on that. So yeah, as soon as we can all go internationally again, we've all got our vaccine passports, you're going to have to get that series on the way.
I'd love to.
All right, rapid fire questions. Best purchase under $200?
I'm going to raise you $50 and make it $250 and tell you that it's our website. So we purchased out of the box theme for $250 back in 2017, and it's what we're using today still.
Shopify?
Shopify, yeah, we're on Shopify Plus now, but the theme was from a company called Out of the Sandbox.
Wow.
It's been the best $250 that we've ever spent. Look, we're currently working on building our own website, but yeah, it's been incredible, really.
Are you still going to build on Shopify?
I think we might go headless.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because, you see, what did I see recently? Like, I'm fascinated by, I don't know if you know in the makeup space, there's this guy, Jeffree Star, and he launches a lot of influencer-led makeup, and they did like a behind the scenes, and they sell like 1 million different palettes a year, and they still use Shopify, and they do this campaign. Like, I think their website crashed the Shopify platform during COVID at some point.
Wow.
So I'm curious then, why move away from a sort of a system, so to speak, and go headless, which is sort of to build on your own? So
Shopify will still house our order system in the back end, but we just won't use Shopify for the front end.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll figure out like a CMS, content management system to drive the front end, and we really want to design it from scratch. And we're really just still in the early phases of it. And we had a meeting the other day, and we're like, oh, I like this website. Oh, I like this website. And Kate dropped a bombshell, and she's like, what if we just create a better website than any of these? Like, we're trying to find inspo, but like, what if we just take it right back? And we're all like, well, we could. So watch this space.
Yeah, it's sort of a case of like, how big's the bag? How much do you want to spend on this? That's always the fun part with website development.
You don't have to spend a lot. I think we could be really innovative and start with a blank canvas.
All right, last question for you. What quote do you live your life by or think of often? I'm
all about having fun, and I say to my team all the time, if we're not having fun, then let's not do it. And I think a really good example of that was a few months ago, we'd been approached by Myer a few times to sell on their online store. I think they've got like a marketplace model. And so we said to the team, should we put our product up for sale on Myer? And one of the guys goes, oh, Hayley, their back-end system is just an absolute nightmare. Like, you've got to upload it and then resize the images. It's just so much work. And we're like, cool, let's not do it. Doesn't sound like fun. So I think it's a really good way to approach it. Like you really do have to enjoy it every day. And when you're happy and engaged and enjoying what you do, that's when you do your best work. And, you know, we're just selling bed sheets at the end of the day. So we may as well make it fun.
Yeah. A lot of people get FOMO when a new like distribution channel comes out and they think they have to do it. But sometimes it's like you said, that's a good way of looking at it. Is this going to be fun? Is it going to be laborious? Is it going to be a pain in the ass? I like that. Because I need to clear up my calendar on a lot of different things that we're looking at the moment. Maybe I need to apply that, so to speak.
Absolutely. Life's too short.
Hayley, thank you for joining us on this episode. I know you've got a board meeting soon, so I'll leave you with a break to at least go eat some lunch. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
We're just thesheetsociety.com. I mean, I'd ask you to follow myself on Instagram, but it's just photos of my kids. So you're probably not that interested. But I'm on LinkedIn too. So if anyone wants to chat, like I'm more than happy to. Just Hayley Worley.
We'll link all of that as well. But Hayley, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Jordan. It was really great to chat.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode. If you do like it, please subscribe. And of course, like if you're watching the YouTube video as well. We'd really appreciate that. You can also find our Clips channel in the description. For audio, if you're not already listening, you can search Uncommon on Pocket Cast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts quite easily. For video, if you're not watching, you can search Uncommon on YouTube. And for behind the scenes takes and clips on social media, then definitely check out @uncommon_show on Instagram. But otherwise, look, thanks so much for tuning in. And until next time, thanks for listening.